All right, so you've given us this YouTube video, 2022 ICT Mentorship, episode 13,
Okay.
from this the Inner Circle Trader
Yeah.
channel,
Yeah.
right? And we're going to kind of like dive into this whole concept of market structure, right?
Right.
And one of the things that I kind of liked right off the bat about, let's just call him the trader,
Okay.
right? He's not just some guy lecturing. Like, he's actually, throughout this video, he's trading on a demo account
Right.
to kind of show you his logic and
Yep.
thought process in real time.
Yeah, that's one of the things I liked about this too. It's one thing to talk about it; it's another thing to actually kind of show it live in the market. So I thought that was a good touch.
Yeah, it was refreshing for sure.
Yeah.
But the thing that
Yeah.
I kind of like was really interested in was his kind of like really strong stance on demo trading.
Right.
Like he's almost like begging new traders to like not like to really hone their skills on a demo account before they even think about putting real money on the line.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to the approach, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like he has a very process-oriented approach, and he believes in really kind of like mastering that skill
Hmm.
before you kind of put it all together. It's similar to, he uses the example of like, I think it was riding a bike or something, right? You're not just going to hop on a bike and start riding. You got to kind of like practice, skin your knees a little bit before you really kind of master it. And I think that's really what he's getting at here. And then kind of hand in hand with that is his emphasis on having a trading plan, right?
Yeah.
So that speaks volumes about kind of his overall approach and his discipline as a trader.
Yeah, so let's unpack that a little bit, this whole trading plan idea. He's talking about, knowing your entry points, knowing your exit points, your risk management, profit targets. It's like a roadmap for how you're going to navigate the market, right?
Yeah. It's about taking the emotion out of it too. Because a lot of times, we can get caught up in the moment, whether that's fear or greed. And so having that plan in place beforehand really helps you to kind of stick to the script, so to speak, and not deviate when things get kind of crazy. And that kind of leads into, a lot of what he talks about is kind of identifying these order blocks and liquidity, right? So it's,
Yeah.
these are essentially areas on the chart where, he believes that institutions or banks or whoever is moving these large sums of money, these are the areas where they're most likely to kind of place their orders. So he's trying to kind of get ahead of the curve, I guess you could say, by anticipating where that's going to happen.
So it's almost like he's looking at he's mapping out where the real action is happening in the market.
Yeah.
But how do you identify an order block? Like,
Yeah.
what's he looking for there?
He's looking for kind of specific patterns, imbalances in the market, areas where there's likely to be kind of a shift in supply and demand. And it can be kind of a nuanced topic, but that's essentially what he's looking for. He's looking for those kind of like trigger points in the market.
So this is where I think it starts to get really, really interesting, because it's not like he's just looking for an order block and that's it. He's not just looking at that in isolation, right? He talks a lot about like considering the broader market context, like what time of day is it, with the overall market sentiment,
Yeah.
and then kind of like making a move based on all those things. So it's almost like he's saying like, okay, don't just look for the order block,
Yeah.
but understand the story that the market is telling you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about kind of putting all those pieces of the puzzle together. It's not just about one thing, because you could have a setup that on the surface looks really good, but if it's not in line with, the overall market context, then it may not play out the way that you expect it to. And so that's where, risk management comes into play too. And he talks a lot about using trailing stop loss orders.
Yes.
To kind of protect yourself.
So for those who may not know, what is a trailing stop loss order, and how does it kind of play into this whole approach that we're talking about?
Well, a trailing stop loss order is designed to kind of lock in profits as the trade moves in your favor. So instead of setting a fixed stop loss point, you're basically, it's going to trail behind the price and, automatically exit the trade if it reverses direction by a certain percentage or amount.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does he use that in relation to these order blocks?
So, he suggests placing your trailing stop loss, maybe just below a recent swing low if you're going long, or above a recent swing high if you're going short.
Yeah.
And kind of using that, obviously in conjunction with the order block structure to give yourself a little bit of room to breathe.
I see.
But also, protect yourself in case the market reverses.
Okay, so he's using his understanding of order blocks to inform not only like where to enter, but also like how to manage his risk.
Exactly.
Now, one thing that he also talks about, which I found kind of fascinating, is this idea of pyramiding.
Right.
Now, I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with that concept.
Yeah.
But can you explain it?
Yeah. So pyramiding is essentially adding to winning trades.
Okay.
So you're basically, instead of going all in at once, you're scaling into the position. So you might start with a smaller position, and then as the trade moves in your favor, you add to it gradually.
Yeah. It's like, if you think about like building a house or something.
Yeah.
So start with the foundation, right? And then as you, as that structure proves to be stable, then you can add another floor and so on. So he's basically kind of,
Yeah.
taking that same approach with his trading where he's not, diving in head first. He's kind of carefully, increasing his exposure as the trade, unfolds according to plan.
Yeah. And that kind of ties back to what we were talking about before, like his emphasis on discipline and kind of like, just patience, right? He's not advocating for like reckless gambling. It's more of a calculated approach, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And he really kind of hammers that home throughout the video about how, this is a skill that takes time and dedicated effort to really develop. And he uses the example, I think it was riding a bike, right? Like at first it's awkward, you're gonna fall down, you're gonna skin your knees, but eventually it clicks, and then it becomes almost like second nature.
Yeah.
So he's saying, it's the same thing with trading. You gotta put the time in, put the effort in. Don't expect to get rich quick, but if you stick with it, eventually you'll find your balance.
Yeah, he's saying like stick with it and you'll find your balance.
Yeah.
But he doesn't sugarcoat it either. Like he's very upfront about the fact that like, losses are inevitable, right?
Right.
Even for experienced traders.
Yeah, and he even talks about that kind of like, the emotional roller coaster that it can be, especially for someone who's new to trading. You get into a trade and it starts going your way, and then you get this kind of like fear of giving back those profits, so you want to exit early. But he's saying that fear often stems from a lack of experience and a lack of confidence in your approach.
Okay.
And so the antidote to that is more practice, more back testing, more immersion in understanding these principles of market structure.
The one thing I thought was interesting that he mentions is he's like, yeah, I still get that itch sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, whereas like, even though I know, like, from all of my experience and everything, that like right now might not be the best time to trade, or like, I don't really see like a super high probability setup, but I still get that urge, right?
Right. That urge to kind of like jump back in the market.
Yeah.
Even when maybe deep down that it's not the right thing to do. So, what he talks about is instead of, when he gets that feeling, he says, well, okay, I'm going to go trade the demo account because that will kind of scratch that itch for me.
Yeah.
But I'm not risking any real money.
It's like almost like he's treating it like a video game at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I just need to like, get this out of my system.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to like, bet the farm on it.
Right.
Type of thing. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting that he's kind of like, he's human too.
Right.
Like he still gets those urges. But it's how you manage them.
Right.
That really makes all the difference.
Exactly.
And one thing, kind of going back to his approach with market structure.
Yeah.
One of the things I appreciated that he said is like, listen, I'm not trying to, predict the future with 100% certainty.
Right.
Like he's not claiming to be some like, market wizard.
Yeah, he's not saying I know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the kind of like traps that a lot of new traders fall into, is they think that you need to be right all the time. And the reality is that, you don't. You just need to have an edge, and you need to manage your risk. And that's really what he's emphasizing here, is it's not about, picking the top and the bottom perfectly every single time. It's about identifying those high probability setups based on, historical data and the behavior of institutional players.
Okay.
He talks about how it's almost like they leave these footprints behind
Okay.
in the market. And he's trying to kind of read those footprints and see where they're going.
So it's more about reading the language of the market, right?
Yeah.
It's like understanding the nuances and being able to kind of like, I don't want to say predict the future, but like get a sense of like
anticipate
where things are headed.
Anticipate, yeah.
Okay.
Get an idea of the probabilities.
Okay.
Because again, it's all about probabilities in trading. It's not about,
Right.
being right or wrong.
Now, one thing he said that I thought was kind of like a bold statement, but I actually agree with him.
Yeah.
Is he's like, if you really like dig into this whole market structure approach, like you'll start to see, like he's like, I guarantee you'll see these same principles like woven into the fabric of like a lot of different successful trading strategies.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, at the end of the day, that the market, boils down to supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
And so regardless of, what your specific, trading strategy or indicators are,
Yeah.
It all comes back to those core principles.
It's like learning the fundamentals
Yeah.
of like whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you're an athlete,
Right.
it doesn't matter what sport you play.
Right.
Like you got to have like good footwork.
Yeah.
You got to have
The fundamentals.
good fundamentals. Exactly.
Yep.
And so this is kind of like what he's talking about here. Like this is like, the core, the fundamentals of trading that once you understand those, it's like, then you can kind of like branch out
Right.
and experiment with different things.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what he encourages people to do. Like don't just take my word for it. Go out there and test it out for yourself.
Yeah.
See if it holds up in the real world.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So he's kind of like, he wants you to be curious.
Yeah. Be curious. Have a thirst for knowledge.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to experiment.
So don't just blindly follow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you want like
See for yourself.
yeah. So one thing he says that I thought was really interesting is he challenges the viewer, right? He's like, go back and look at your trade history.
Yeah.
And he's like, I mean, just see, like, were the principles that I'm talking about here, were they present in your winning trades?
Yeah.
And he's like, and were they absent in your losing trades?
Yeah.
And it's almost like, you're holding up a mirror
Right.
to your trade.
So you're trading.
And you're kind of like forced to confront like, okay, like what's actually working?
Right.
What's not working?
Yeah. And where are the areas that I need to improve?
Okay, so then how do we apply that?
Well, it's not necessarily about taking what he does and replicating it, step by step. It's more about understanding the principles behind it.
Okay.
And then seeing, do those resonate with me?
Okay.
Do they fit my trading style? Do they fit my risk tolerance? And if so, how can I incorporate those into my own approach?
So it's more about like integration
Yeah.
than it is like a complete like
Right.
overhaul.
Exactly. Yeah. He's not trying to create, cookie cutter traders.
Right.
He wants you to develop your own edge, right? But based on, a solid understanding of how the market actually works.
He's essentially saying like, don't just take my word for it.
Yeah.
Like go out there and test it.
Right.
Like actually like see if this stuff holds up.
Exactly. Yeah. Put it to the test.
Yeah.
See for yourself.
Now, I got to say like, one of the things I really appreciated about his approach here and kind of like just his whole demeanor is he's not trying to like, sell you some like get rich quick scheme.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's very much about like empowering the trader to like
Yeah.
think for themselves.
Well, think for yourself. Be curious.
Yeah.
Challenge your assumptions.
Yeah. And to me, like that's like the mark of a true educator.
Absolutely.
It's not about like, just like giving you the answers.
Right.
It's about like teaching you how to like find the answers yourself.
Yeah. It's about giving you the tools and then letting you kind of,
Right.
go out there and build something with them.
Yeah. So I think, after kind of like going through this whole deep dive here,
Yeah.
I think that the question that we're left with is, are you approaching the market with that same level of discipline and kind of like, strategic thinking?
Right. Are you just kind of like hoping and praying?
Yeah.
Or are you really kind of like digging in and understanding like what makes the market move?
Yeah. And are you willing to kind of like challenge your own assumptions, right?
Absolutely.
And about like how the market works and what it takes to be successful.
Yeah, and I think, one of the key takeaways for me from this video was really just that emphasis on process and discipline, and really, not being afraid to put in the work to learn and to grow as a trader, because like anything else in life, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, you got to put in the effort.
So really, I think it comes down to mindset more than anything, right?
Yeah.
It's like, are you approaching this with it was a gambling mindset, or
Yeah.
are you approaching it
Right.
with an investor's mindset,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And I think, the trader that we saw in this video, he definitely has that investor's mindset where it's like he's not just trying to like, make a quick buck.
Right.
He's in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
He's trying to like, build something sustainable
Yeah.
that's gonna last. And I think that's something that we can all learn from. So hopefully this deep dive has given you some things to think about.
Absolutely.
And maybe even inspired you to kind of like take your trading to the next level.
Yeah, and if nothing else, just to be more mindful
Right.
of your own, trading process, and see like where are the areas that maybe you can improve? Where are you making mistakes, and how can you learn from those mistakes and become a trader?
Beautifully said. I
Yeah.
think that's a perfect note to end on.